One of the growth segments of this sport is women getting into the sport. We're starting to see this grow, and what you gals are doing, getting more female involvement in the sport fishing community. It's amazing. It's a blessing to this business. And the two of you teamed up, you're going to make some headway, some major impact. Let me put it this way. I know some of the industry is listening. You just keep pushing. Keep pushing.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Angie Scott and Barb Carey.
That was fishing industry icon Lindner speaking to Barb and I from the stage at this year's Fishing Careers Workshop, which took place at Madden's on Gull Lake in Brainerd, Minnesota. And this was after Barb gave an amazing presentation to about 130 fishing industry hopefuls. Meeting Barb for the first time and getting the chance to meet one of my all-time favorite industry heroes, Lindner, made for a great day I'll not soon forget. Barb and I couldn't pass up the rare opportunity of being in the same location to record a couple of podcast episodes. The one you're about to hear is a candid conversation between the two of us the morning after the workshop. We discussed the current state of women in the industry, our vision, and some of the ways we hope to continue to grow female participation in the sport. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. I am here in person with Barb Carey, and this does not happen very often.
Yeah, you know, we're partners on this radio show, and we've communicated only by telephone and email until this weekend. And Angie, what a pleasure to meet you.
It's been great to meet you in person, finally. We're up at Madden's on Gull Lake in Brainerd, Minnesota. We came up for the Fishing Careers Workshop that the Lindners put on. And this is their second annual Fishing Careers Workshop. Barb, you actually spoke at the event yesterday, which was pretty cool. Do you know how many people they had speaking yesterday?
I think there was about 10.
10. So you were one of the 10 and the only female. There was another lady who was part of the tourism up here that spoke a little bit yesterday, but you had a segment all to yourself to talk about women and fishing and what you do with Wisconsin Women Fish, and you just did an amazing job. And we actually have a video of that. I did a Facebook Live from the event yesterday on our Facebook group, The Woman Angler and Adventurer. So if you want to check that out, and I encourage everybody listening, if you didn't see it, to definitely go check that out. This is a closed group, but if you request to join, we will add you as quick as possible. You just have to answer a couple quick questions about what kind of outdoor activities you're into and how you came across us. And you can just say from listening to the podcast. It was super motivational, and talking to that room of mostly men in the fishing industry and just letting them know that there's a problem going on, that like women aren't being included like they should be. They're not getting a fair shake. And I just love how passionate you get about, when you speak about that. And I think it made a really big impact.
Well, thanks. I feel like I've been doing this for a long time, and historically, I guess 13 years isn't that long, but the amount of change in the industry in the last 13 years, there's a lot that's happened. And I think that some of the changes that need to be done, they're not being done fast enough. And let me give you an example. Sometimes people hear, women aren't getting a fair shake. You a bunch of whiners. You're not working hard enough. You want stuff handed to you because you're a woman. And that's not the case at all. I think most of the women I know that are working in the industry couldn't possibly work any harder than they do. But here's an example of something I'm talking about. Somebody sent me a video just 2 days ago. And it was a video promoting high school fishing. And, it was to a nonprofit foundation kind of thing. They wanted to get the word out so maybe they could get some donors to help with this very worthwhile project. So the guy sent me the video, and there was this, video with adults and kids in the fishing uniforms, from the schools and stuff talking, and it went through the whole thing. And there wasn't one girl or woman in that video. And I know for a fact that like the president of the whole high school fishing association in Wisconsin is a woman. I've had 4 or 5 women from our group, Wisconsin Women Fish, volunteer to coach teams in this high school league. And there are a ton of girls in this program, and more want to get involved. And to have them excluded from that video is exactly what I'm talking about, and the problem isn't so much that they were excluded. The problem is the people that made the video, it didn't even come into their mind, so that is really what kind of my latest thing is that I'm talking about, and trying to change the mentality in how they view women in the outdoors and their marketing efforts.
You were recently approached by an outdoor photographer about getting some shots, of women ice fishing or whatever, and you were like, yeah, that would be great. And then later, the same photographer came up and said, yeah, let's get some models out there. And like, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to show real women so that we can connect with real women, that are out there, that when women see these models and these photos, that's not real. You don't connect with that in any way. If anything, it does the opposite.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that, actually, that same interaction this morning. And I thought about putting an ad, like just as a Facebook post, say, for example, wanted pro walleye angler to come to a photo shoot on Lake Mille Lacs, and kind of target it towards guys, and then have the last line, must be very attractive. People would think that was absolutely ridiculous, because look around at some of these TV hosts and people that are in the pictures in the catalogs. I look through some of these things and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, because it's not even average. It's just like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just not even in the wheelhouse to look and evaluate the look that the person has, unless you're a woman. And that's, it's going to take a long time to change that. But, I'm going to bring it out and mention it when I see it happen. And that's what I think we as women have to do, and work together, and not be one of the few that, aren't helping that cause. I think it hurts everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And, coming from the music industry, it's the same way in the music industry. When you look at some of these artists, you see some of these male artists that are hugely successful, and some of them are not models by any stretch. But then you look at the female artists, and they all have to, live up to the standard of the certain look. And it's different. The fishing industry is totally different. Female anglers aren't there to have a look to them. It's about the fishing and the personality and that type of thing. So it's so funny to see that in the fishing industry, but it's so prevalent. And I hope that we start making some headway to changing that.
Oh, there is change, because, we're having the conversation. I remember when I first started, and I would kind of point out obvious things that were, there was one example, there was a bait shop that sold bait and tackle. And their sign out front was actually a pinup girl with, bobbers where they should, and it's like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to buy anything in there. It's just like, how can that be good marketing for you in this day and age?
Well, I think what we need to do as females in the industry is everybody just needs to band together and work together. Like you said, we're better together. And that's, I think, how we're really going to be able to make a sizable impact on the industry.
And one of the things I said on the Wisconsin Women Fish Members Only Facebook page yesterday, somebody posted the Wisconsin hunting regulations. They come out with a paper magazine, with all the rules and regulations and everything. And there was a cover shot, was a woman hunter with a deer. And that was awesome to see. And I told the ladies, I said, instead of us complaining and writing hate mail to these people that aren't getting it right, let's kind of do more of a positive campaign. And when people are getting it right, really point it out to them. Mm-hmm. And the buying power of the woman, female angler and the outdoors women in general is huge. Not only, with their purchases for their specific use, but for their family's use. I mean, if there's a boat being purchased for the family, nowadays the women has some say in that. Totally. And to have a couple go in the boat show and have the boat dealers only talk to the men. I mean, I've had women walk out before because they're not even talked to, and the guy doesn't even fish, and the woman is a tournament angler. So assumptions have to stop being made. And I made this reference to one of the young guys we were talking to last night. It's like, I've seen so many women pull into a boat launch and the guys there, oh, do you need me to back that in for you? I mean, so they're making an assumption about the skill. They're making these assumptions about what they think is wanted for gear, like pink. And I just think if people stop making assumptions about anything and just look at things for their face value, we'd be further ahead right now.
You brought up a great point about the companies. I think us as female anglers really need to seek out and support those companies that support female anglers. And maybe, it's part of our job to find those companies and let people know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And being involved in some of these women's groups really kind of helps you keep dialed in on what's happening. And, not only what's happening with the companies and the trends of society and all that, but just what's happening in general in terms of what's good fishing, what's good hunting right now, how do I get involved? And, if we can switch the conversation over about that a little bit, because the trend of, even Lindner said, women anglers are on the rise. I mean, the amount of the numbers with hunting and fishing and outdoor adventure for women is just skyrocketing. And, maybe we can give some tips to the women that listen to this and really kind of that'd be so fun to do that, or I wish I could do that. How some ideas of how maybe they could get involved and get started.
Yeah.
What do you got to start out with here, Angie?
Well, for me personally, I'm not, I love to fish, but I've done it as a hobby. I'm not as experienced as you are, as like doing tournaments and things like that. So I can kind of speak to that from a person who's also learning and growing and, trying to improve my skills. I think the first thing, we mentioned men not making assumptions about the skill level, but don't be intimidated if you don't know how to back a trailer. This is all stuff that you need to learn, and the only way to learn it is by doing it. I am not great at backing a trailer, I'll admit. I mean, just because I just don't have the experience. My boat sits in the water, and so I don't have to trailer it in and out on a regular basis like some people do. So I'm in a fishing club and I'm the only female in the club. So you get paired up with a boater, and then, I'm the co-angler. So typically the co-angler will back the boat down the ramp, and, so the boater just, and then you go park the truck and then hop in. I've not been able to do that yet. And I tried it the first time. It was great. The guy assumed that I could do it. He wasn't like, oh, she's a girl, she's not going to be able to do this.
But you couldn't.
So yeah. So I'm like all nervous. I've done it before. It's just been a really long time. And I remember the way I do it is I put my hand at the bottom of the wheel, and I know whichever way I turn the wheel is the way the trailer is going to go. But I'm short statured. I'm only 5'3", and I'm in this giant pickup truck, which this guy that I was fishing with is over 6 foot tall. So now I'm in this truck that I'm at the ramp too. So there's pressure. We're already backed at the ramp. And I'm having to figure out how to adjust his seat because I can't even reach the pedals. I can't see out the mirrors, nothing. And so I can't find the lever to do the seat because every truck is different, and so I'm kind of in a panic. I finally figure out how to adjust the seat. And he already had it lined up. So really all I had to do was just start backing it down. I start backing it up, thinking it's just going to go straight because he had it lined up. I finally look out the rearview mirror and it's totally like cockeyed. And I'm like, he's sitting in the boat and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, there was no way he was going to be able to back it off the trailer at the angle it was at.
Oh, jeez.
And so I can't remember. I think I straightened it out and then finally got him down the ramp. But that was pretty embarrassing. And after that experience, I was like, all right, I need to practice more before I attempt this again.
Absolutely. It's just a matter. I wish I had my boat here. We could go out in the parking lot
and practice. Yeah. Well, and I live at a marina, and so there's so many opportunities for me to practice. I just haven't done it yet. And
every truck and boat and situation you get into is different. And the bigger the boat, the easier it is.
Right.
It's like trying to back up one of those little lawn tractors, how hard that is with the short tongue, and you get into a 40-foot boat, it's actually a lot easier.
If it was my vehicle and my trailer, I think I could go out there and do a pretty decent job right now. But so yeah, it's just a matter of getting out there and doing it.
At some of these events that we have, women's fishing events, we'll have say 10 women with boats. So when we get there, there's like this parade, everyone in line, and all the passengers get out of the passenger seat which is actually the driver of the boat. They'll jump in, the passenger. It's just like an assembly line working really smoothly. And the same thing when they come in, they're dropping people off, they're jumping on the dock and the boat pulls away. The next boat pulls up, drops off the driver of the car. And to look at people that see this happen, there's a bunch of people camping and fishing and, other boats around and other people in the loading and unloading area. And you can see their eyes get about as big around as, and they're like, holy smokes, what did I just see? And I just feel such a sense of pride for these gals because they are good. They know what they're doing and they work together as a team like nothing I've ever seen before. And I think that's one of the things that, really help women move forward with their skill, whether it be fishing, hunting, or rock climbing or whatever, is getting connected with other people. So one program I think is a good place to start, no matter where you're listening, is generally most places have a BOW or a Becoming an Outdoor Woman program. That's kind of a good place to start. A lot of their programming is more of an introductory piece of the pie. Like when I taught ice fishing, I taught people that were intrigued about ice fishing and just kind of took them out, showed them everything, gave them the basics. Some will know at that point if they want to do more of it or if it's not their thing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the first step, is finding someone just to get you out there to try it for the first time. And then finding someone that you can kind of go with on a regular basis. And sometimes it only takes one person. And really, for me, it was one person. It was Holly Hansen. I mean, her and I met, I think I told that story in the seminar, that I finally met one person that loved to fish as much as I did. And then all sorts of good things have come from that. And, there's ways to do that. Actually, our Women Angler and Adventure Facebook page is a great place to, hey, anybody from Timbuktu? Mm-hmm. Because I've seen a lot of that happening over there.
Yeah, I think social media is a huge advantage, and so it's so easy to find somebody in your area. Even going on and setting up a meetup in your area for women who want to fish or get out and hike or whatever would be a great way to, I think it's meetup.com is the website. I can put a link to that in the show notes for this episode, but that's just another tool out there where you can get a small group of women together. And even if it's just one person, like you said, that comes out, that could make all the difference. And you make that connection and then you learn together. And yeah, I think that's a huge thing. And then, you mentioned BOW, and then just search your area for other clubs or organizations. I've learned so much through the men's fishing club that I'm in. And it's not it's a co-ed club, but it's all men except for me at the moment. But you may find a club in your area that does have a couple women in it, and even if not, if you're the type of person that doesn't really get intimidated by that, just go out and you'll just improve your skills so much. I've learned so much from these guys, and so I would encourage women to just give that a shot. You'll find most of these guys are very helpful. This particular group, the first weekend, we had a weekend tournament away. We had dinner together the night after fishing all day, and it just felt like a family already, and they were so cool. So
yeah, anglers in general have that, love for the sport. It just kind of has something that you already have something in common with. This is kind of a challenge. I saw this on a woman's Facebook page, and the woman was Carrie Zilka. She's been on the show before. You've talked to her in the past. And she posted a post, and she's a big hunter. She loves hunting more so than fishing. But she posted, does anybody want to go hunting and doesn't have a mentor? Does someone need to be mentored in hunting? Reaching out. She reached out to both men and women, but if you're proficient at it and you do it a lot, I put it out there. Say, hey, any of my friends, does anyone want to come with? Does anyone want to see what this is about? Because having that opportunity or that door open for somebody else, that stuff is life-changing at times. I've seen it firsthand over and over again. When I get those phone calls, I found you on the website, but I'm not sure if it's a good fit for me. And, I talk them into it, and they come all freaked out, nervous, and not knowing what to expect. And they go away 2 feet taller and had the time of their life. So change, life is so short, man. If you don't have fun and adventure and doing the things that you want to do, make some changes before it's too late.
Yeah, that's a great point. I encourage any women out there listening, especially those women who are already very much into hunting and fishing in the outdoors, is just seek out a friend and somebody who maybe hasn't experienced it yet. And if they're willing to go, whether they think they'll like it or not, the only way they're going to know is by trying it. And so, just spread the love, basically, and encourage women to listen to this podcast, because I think, by listening to some of these other women that we interview, they might take away something or find some sort of inspiration and think, if she can do it, I can do it.
Right. I'm going to mention a few things just off the top of my head, and then Angie is the workhorse that puts all these links in the show notes, and thank you, Angie, for doing that, because you do a great job at that piece of this pie. But I've mentioned before, Wisconsin Women Fish, wiwomenfish.com. There's the Women Anglers of Minnesota. There's the Ontario Women Anglers. And there's another gal who works with me on the Women Ice Angler project by the name of Chantal Whitstruck. And we'll tag her in this post because she puts on, or she's involved in, a woman pheasant hunt out in the Dakotas that's really interesting. And we'll try to think of some more, Becoming an Outdoor Women program. We can Google that. I know there's several women's fishing clubs in Florida that have been around for a really long time. I know one of them kind of has a cap on their membership, but, there's other stuff out there. And as a listener, when you listen to this podcast, please put a link or tell us another place that a woman could go. If you know of a club or an organization or a program, the Wild Turkey Federation oftentimes has classes for women in turkey hunting, even other hunting and fishing, it's just not turkey hunting. And that's a good resource too. Can you think of anything else?
But I think what we'll do, we'll start compiling these resources. And any listeners out there, like Barb said, please, if you're aware of something that we didn't mention, either email me, Angie at thewomanangler.com, or send me a message on Facebook or post on our Facebook group. We'll see it for sure. And we can put a resources page together on our website. Oh, that's
a great idea. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you do that, because that's what you do. It's easy for me to say, let's do it.
I'll make it thewomanangler.com/resources. And by the time you hear this podcast episode, that will be up. And so you
Boy,
can go
Angie, you are on it, man. That's why this podcast is going to go places, because you're so on the ball like that. And we're figuring out what women need, and you're doing it, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I enjoy it, and it motivates me. And partnering up with you has just been amazing, because I wish we would have done it sooner. But I think both of us work very well together, and we both have our strengths and weaknesses, and we complement each other very well. So I think, Al Lindner even said yesterday, I was talking to him, he was asking me how the show's been going, and he said he was just so happy that we partnered up together, and that, it just makes producing the show so much easier. I mean, it's a lot of time goes into finding people to interview, deciding like what listeners want to hear, and then the actual producing, putting the website together, doing social posts, like all that takes a lot of time. And I also have a full-time job, so, trying to juggle all that. But since bringing you on, it's just made it so much easier, and that we're able to do a weekly show for our listeners has been huge.
Well, and just so the listeners know, I mean, this is a labor of love for both of us. I mean, nobody's paying us anything. This is a volunteer gig, man. So if we can kind of keep our numbers up and, get more women involved, more women to listen, maybe one day we'll sell an advertisement. And that would help pay some of the bills, right, Angie?
Yeah, and that's where you guys come into play. Like, we need you to spread the word about this podcast to other women, who are into hunting and fishing, but also other women, that might be interested in it, and that they might, like I said earlier, get some inspiration from this show. And even reach out to guys that, who have spouses, and these guys want their spouses to get involved. I think a guy having his partner or spouse listen to this podcast, that might be the encouragement they need to get them out. And what guy doesn't want his wife like loving the outdoors and fishing and all that?
Speaking of guys, I mean, really, a lot of men are doing a great job of pushing this forward for women, and being so welcoming and so encouraging. I mean, we have a lot of guys that are on our Facebook page and interject something once in a while, all positive, nothing negative. And I'm sure we have a lot of guys that listen to the podcast, and hats off to you, because, you're here getting in touch with how the angle of the view of the women is. And you're the guys that have been, inviting women to go out in the boats for, a long time. And for those of you that get it and have it together, thanks. Thanks for being one of the cool guys. And that's making a big difference for us too.
It is. And you even had a few guys come up to you yesterday after you spoke at the Fishing Careers Workshop, just, saying thank you for what you're doing, and, even asking questions about how they can help. One guy was in a fishing club at a college, and kind of observed that they would have women come in and then they would kind of disappear after a bit. Like, what do we need to do as a club to change that so that these women stick around and we get more women involved? And so that's really cool to hear that guys are like concerned and thinking about that. And they're smart to do so, because the future of the industry depends on getting more women and kids involved. If we want this to grow, and conservancy dollars come from how many people are buying licenses and hunting and fishing licenses, and we have to protect our resources, which is a super important thing. So if the numbers continue to dwindle, and all these kids are growing up with video games and not getting exposure to the outdoors, as an industry, everybody needs to come together and get more people involved. In single moms with kids, like, that's another huge thing. That's why I feel like getting more women involved would help in that area too.
Yeah, I had a nice young man, come up to me after I spoke yesterday and thanked me, and said that he was raised by a single mom, and his mom was working so hard, at just trying to keep food on the table and working a couple jobs, and she didn't hunt or fish. So he actually had to find other people, like an uncle or some other people, to kind of get introduced to that sport. So That's another thing I think that we can do is just take other people's kids out that aren't, their parent or their moms aren't involved in fishing that much, because we've all had that experience when we were a kid and we had that one fish on and it just kind of lit something up inside of you and changed you. And that's where a passion for angling comes from. And if you have it, you're a lucky person.
Yes, definitely. We've all been blessed to have had that experience. And so if we can pass that along to another kid that wouldn't have that opportunity, I think we have to do that.
Well, Angie, it's been a great weekend hanging out with you and meeting you. And I'm hoping that maybe in the near future, I'll take a road trip down to Nashville and see what you got for fishing down there.
That would be awesome. I look forward to that very much.
And keep piping up on Facebook, because, maybe we can, if we're going through a town and you fish and you say, hey, I'm fishing here, stop over. I mean, what a great trip that would be. Just go on a road trip around, stopping at all the listeners and fish with those. Would that be something?
That would be a blast.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll have enough advertisers. We'll get a nice truck with a logo on it. Just go seek out our listeners and have them take us fishing.
That would be so much fun.
We can dream, right?
Yes. Yep. Well, I'm excited for what the future holds, and it's just been great getting to meet you in person. And hopefully we'll be able to do more podcast episodes together. With technology, that's certainly not a difficult thing to do. It's just getting schedules together, I think, is the most difficult thing. So, but just everybody out there, keep listening. We're going to keep bringing you the best content that we can. We're going to grow this thing.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you once again for listening to this episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. If you like what we're doing and want to see where we're going, head on over to thewomanangler.com. Sign up for our email list. We'll keep you informed of what's coming up. We've got some fun stuff like giveaways in the works, so you'll want to be sure you're on the list so you don't miss out. We're in this for the long haul, and we hope that you are as well. See you next week, everyone.